us on the first show, a number of details that we have coming your way as we're discussing the things that affect me and that affect you as we're dealing with the economic crisis that we're going through, especially in the COVID-19 time when all economies are on the lockdown and a number of people are asking themselves, how do we survive in this COVID-19 situation when we're expected to pay school fees, to pay rent, to try and pay rent not only for our houses but also for the buildings that we're in as business people and keep our businesses afloat as we're dealing with these issues. There's a tweet from Rebecca Kadaga as she was speaking about especially that issue. She was saying that the government needs to investigate the fact that there were accusations that the buffer plan, the amount of money that was given for buffer plans for businesses that were affected during the COVID-19 were only given to certain people and not other people or other companies. And the people that were chosen from a certain perspective or view of the people that were giving this money. So Rebecca Kadaga called for an investigation and said something needs to be looked at. Now that is the information that we have for you, especially in the economic crisis in the country. However, the story that got my attention and that I thought that is important to discuss in details, cut it in swallowable pieces and help you understand is the 1,444-kilometer oil pipeline that Uganda is going to have as a project between Tanzania and Uganda. It will pass through the Western District to Tanga in Tanzania. Now, Samia Suluhu, who is the president of Tanzania, came into Uganda to sign that particular peace deal between Uganda and Shell, which will be Total, I beg your pardon, which will be part of the oil project. Now, the concern is of a number of civil society organizations and DR Congo that have rejected the recently signed oil agreements over lack of transparency, environmental concern, and failure to consult the population on key issues of the oil business. Now, why is DRC being involved in an oil project where one, the oil pipeline is not passing in DRC? Two, we know that it's between Tanzania and Uganda. So why is DRC quite concerned about the fact that the oil project is happening in Uganda? See, where the oil has been found is near the border of DRC and Uganda. And the concern of a number of civil societies and DRC is that there is an issue about government not signing agreements when it comes to environment. And we know that when there is oil in a country, there's of course environmental degradation, and they're asking or questioning the government over their concerns on environment and whether they have thought about the fact that this oil pipeline that is going to be built and the project of oil in Uganda is going to affect not only the environment, the climate, the weather in Uganda, but also in DRC. Now, in a joint communique that was signed by 44 civil societies in Uganda and DRC Congo, the organizations say that aside from the fact that government has not looked at climate, weather, environment, they're also doing things in secrecy. And they're saying there are deals that government is signing with some people in secrecy. And these are things that the Ugandan population do not know about. And for them, that's a big concern because the oil pipeline project is supposed to be beneficial to not only these people who are signing the deal, but it's also supposed to be beneficial to Ugandans as citizens. But how are they going to benefit from it if the government has started doing things in secrecy like they're doing? And they're saying that safety needs to be guaranteed and put in place in order for the oil fields that are located along Uganda-DRC borders in order to avoid tensions that have in the past erupted over mineral rights, among other issues. Now, let us quote directly what the Industry's Transparency Initiative has said in demanding that oil-related text agreements, licenses, and contracts be made public to promote transparency and accountability. Now, they have said that it is unfortunate that the government of Uganda, Tanzania, and the oil companies have continued to operate in secrecy. Yet, secrecy leads to the oil curse characterized by corruption, poverty, environmental destruction, conflicts, and other ills in the African oil-producing companies. And that is what part of the communique read. They also say that the lack of environment and social management plans is a major gap as district leaders, local communities, cultural institutions, religious leaders, CSOs and other stakeholders lack information on the major potential environment and social and climatic change impacts of the Lake Albert project. Now, all this is concerned with, one, the secrecy, and two, the fact that there will be environmental degradation if nothing is done about these issues. Now, these people also accuse the president of arm twisting the parliament to comply with secret agreements they signed with oil companies. And they're saying that unless the government becomes transparent, the oil project would actually not kick off as fast and as advantageous as they'd want it to be. Now let's look at what they said in direct quotes, not my words, but their words. They say, share the climate change, environmental and biodiversity mitigation management plans for the Tailenga, Kingfisher and ECOP oil projects with the public for review to determine their advocacy. Now we see that there has been no particular response from the Energy Ministry officials and Minister Mary Goretti Okurur, who is Mary Goretti Chitutu, I beg your pardon, who is also a former Minister of Government, was not available to explain exactly these details and the accusations that are being planted by a number of officials, like 44 people from DRC Congo and a number of organizations that are concerned with environment. Now, what is your view, ladies and gentlemen, about this particular oil project pipeline that is supposed to go on, and people who were excited about it? Ugandans were very excited, and they were saying, we cannot wait for the oil pipeline project to start. And there was an interview between Museveni and one of the BBC journalists who asked Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, is it true that the reason why you do not want to leave power is because you want the oil pipeline project to begin in your tenure? And the president said, see, here's the thing about the oil pipeline project. Uganda has not only developed an oil pipeline. Besides, the barrels that we're getting, the 66 barrels that we're getting for the oil pipeline or the oil in Uganda has not been there before. And Uganda has been surviving on agriculture and also the people. So why would I be so concerned with the oil pipeline project? Yeah, he has sarcastic answers, doesn't he? Well, there you go. Now, my question to you on your social media platforms, which of course you can join us, and that is Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, is what do you think about this concern that these people have raised? Do you think DRC has the right to even raise these concerns about environment? Are we concerned about environment when we're looking at the oil pipeline project, or are we just seeing money in our faces and we're thinking, there's going to be a lot of money in this oil pipeline project? But are we concerned about the environment? That is quite important. Now, the other story that got our attention, and we decided we've got to discuss it in detail before we leave this place, is the fact that traders in West Nile, or what we can quote as taxpayers in West Nile, are concerned at how Uganda Revenue Authority is collecting the taxes in Arua. Now, a trader explained that I lost my teeth when the URA came and they were trying to talk to me about my taxes, and however, they were not talking to me. They were harassing me when they were asking me to pay this particular money. Now, the taxpayers said the action of Uganda Revenue Authority enforcers had led in fear of paying taxes. Now, instead of making people more vigilant to paying taxes, they're making people afraid of paying taxes. It reminds me of cases here and how they have their dealings in Kampala town. When they come to the streets, and because these women are not supposed to sell in the streets, you can see how these people are treated. Some people are beaten in the process. The goods poured, and they also complain and say they're being mistreated by KCCA in Kampala, even if they were told not to sell in the streets. Isn't there a better way to deal with these issues? Is the questions that they are asking. So they're saying that URA and KCCA need to find a better way of taking these taxes from these people. Now, Al-Majid, who is one of the taxpayers, and he was explaining what was happening to him and why they're castigating Uganda Revenue Authority with the way that they're collecting taxes, says, I broke my arm and teeth when the Uganda Revenue Authority enforcers hit me with their car door as they chased me to impound my motorcycle. I have been paralyzed since then. Now, Majid is a boda rider in Arua, and that's where he gets his livelihood. Majid now says that he demands for compensation from Uganda Revenue Authority because his family is sleeping hungry. He's unable to continue riding boda because he was hit. I want you to imagine this scenario. Majid is on a boda, he's riding his boda, and then the URA are chasing after him. It's a funny scenario, but it's a sad scenario as well. So they're chasing after him, and then they open the car door in order to stop him. Subhanallah. Very sad indeed. I mean, there are better ways of doing these things. There are better ways of asking for tax. They're taking us back to the times of Amin Dada, whereby if you saw tax collectors, you had to run because you were in trouble if you hadn't paid the taxes. And people evaded taxes because they were direct taxes, and they would come door to door and collect those taxes. Are we going back to those times? Ladies and gentlemen, should something be done about these concerns? Yes, something needs to be done. And this kind of collecting taxes is sad, and something actually needs to be done. Now, the chairperson of Arua Business Community, Mr. Moses Obeta, says that there is need for URA to be friendly. Now, his direct words, he says, we ask our people doing smuggling to know that it is illegal. But people should be handled in a humane way so that no one can be scared of paying taxes and everybody can be free to pay taxes. We do not want to see the past scenarios of ruthlessness by your officers, and people should desist from stoning these officers, he said. Mr. Baker Andabati, the chairperson of Koboko Boda Association, said, we are not happy with the way URA enforcers carry out their operations. Why should you beat motorists in the name of collecting tax? When these people are injured, URA does not want to take responsibility. This is bad. And the concern goes on and on and on and on. Now, there has been an estimation of 14,310 liters of petrol and 50 liters of diesel that has been sold from the DR Congo. And of course, the URA is saying that they have lost an amount of 38,903,500 because of the smuggling that is done between Sudan, DRC, and Uganda. And they're saying that is what they're doing in order to collect these taxes. Now, URA has their concern, and these people have their concern. However, somebody needs to sit on a round table to discuss these issues because, like we explained earlier, look at the tax reforms that are being discussed in Parliament. I mean, right now, we are at a situation where the country already is going through an economic crisis. And then there are tax reforms that are being discussed, like the traffic tax, where bodas will be charged an additional 50,000 that they will be paying, and taxes will also be paying a certain amount of money in order to continue driving in town. But what does that mean? That the end person, that is me and you, will be paying a bigger amount of money when we are getting in these taxes because of the taxes that have been imposed on the background on these taxes. Now, the other concern is that fuel prices have been hiked and they have increased. Now, look at the situation like this. The prices of fuel have been increased. That's an additional charge, right? And then there's a tax that has been imposed on these taxis in town. That's an additional price. And that means we'll be paying exorbitantly for these charges, and yet we are all fighting to try and put back our businesses in place, especially at a time when the country is suffering from the COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown of the economies, where some have not been opened to debt. And when these things are not looked at, then we have the situation like that of the 2 children in Kabale that were put in school for almost a month under arrest, so to say. So Kabale, the school in Kabale decided to be a juvenile center of their own in arresting these two children, and they decided because their parents had not paid a tune of 1 million Ugandan shillings, they wouldn't let them go. Now, if government does not look at these issues, then we as the citizens are going to be in trouble. And there is a picture that was put in one of the dailies where someone was trying to milk a cow that, one, did not have flesh, and two, you could see that the cow was actually not being fed. And the tagline was that the government is milking a community that it is not feeding. And that means there's a lot of issues and situations that are going on in the country